Kevin Christensen, and I am a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, and this is the Wyoming Matters podcast. Part of the tour around Wyoming is talking with people that are involved in politics, and today we have a guest with us that is currently the mayor of Nunn, and he is running for House District 58, and it's near and dear to my heart because that is also my House district. So take this as an opportunity to speak to the people of Wyoming, but also an opportunity to speak to at least one of your future constituents, since I am not a Nunn resident, even though I do polling there. So let's start out. How about just introducing yourself to the subscribers of Wyoming Matters podcast?
Sure. Where do you want me to start at?
Well, I think since we're both soldiers, let's start with that because we both have a common connection there.
Okay, excellent. So I joined the Army when I was 22. Yeah. Well, I officially entered the Army. I was on the delayed entry program, and I entered the Army when I was 22. And I had always wanted to join the Army. I'd always wanted to be in the Army or be a soldier. I was actually, funny story behind that, I was actually almost a Marine. Mm-hmm. And that was simply because their uniforms looked so good.
Yeah. Did you not pass the crayon eating entry requirements?
Oh, no, I can eat crayons with the best of them. I mean, I was an infantryman, so I was initially going to go in as a heavy tracked vehicle mechanic. Uh-huh. And that's not what I originally wanted to do. And it was because of a girl, not my wife. And we were dating at the time, and she didn't want me to go to combat or anything like that. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll do something that'll keep me behind the front lines. And then we broke up. And so I immediately went to my recruiter, and I was like, I don't want to.
It's infantry time now, baby.
It's time to blow things up because that's what I was signing up for.
Right.
I'm a door kicker. And so I went to him. I still remember Staff Sergeant Van Hees. And he was super excited about it. I ended up going in October to Fort Benning, mm-hmm. Georgia. And I did they call it OSIT. I don't know what they call it now. I've been out for a while. So it was OSIT, one station unit training. So yes. It was all of my basic and so I guess for all those people that don't know is that you have your basic, and that lasts, I think it's 9 weeks if I remember correctly. I think it's 9 weeks, and then you have your AIT, which is your advanced individual training, and so for me as an infantryman, you tack on another 7 weeks or something like that. And so OSIT was at Fort Benning, which is I did all of that training in one place. So got out of there. Was it March? I don't remember. Coldest I've ever been was at Fort Benning, and I was in Alaska too. And the coldest
Benning was the coldest.
How
interesting.
Ever been. Yes.
Do you know my coldest? I got to tell you, was at Fort Irwin, California in the summer. The
Really?
Coldest I've ever been in my entire life was during a rotation. The incredible heat. It was one of the hottest days, about 120 during the day. Sun went behind a peak, and it went from 120 to 70, and I was in uncontrollable chills. I was freezing. I was soaking wet. I was a cavalry scout, and I had nothing with me, like clothing or anything, and it was just absolutely freezing. I thought, how weird. I'm a Wyoming boy who did winter survival training here in Wyoming, and the coldest I'm going to be is in the desert in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, funny enough, my first duty station was Fort Irwin.
Oh, really?
Yep,
yeah.
It was Fort Irwin, and so yeah, it was. But so I feel that pain because it's like, we deployed to Iraq from Fort Irwin, which is fairly similar. They're both really hot places.
It's very similar. Yeah.
But it's truth. Like it goes from 120 to like 60 degrees at night, and you've got that 60 degree shift, and it's 60 degrees. So like anywhere else it'd be normal, but here you're shivering, you're freezing, you feel like you're gonna die.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. So when did you finish up your time in the Army?
So I was 2010. January 2010. So I did 2 deployments to Iraq. So one was actually at Fort Irwin. It was the first time Fort Irwin had deployed in I think it was 50 years or something like that. So I was Fox Troop 111 ACR.
That's right.
And we started out in Ottomia, and we bounced all around. They sent us everywhere. We were like basically putting out fires the whole time, which I guess is a good thing because that means we were useful, right? And then so that was 2005, 2006, got back. I PCS'd, a permanent change of station to, I forget that, most people know the acronym.
You're talk with another soldier.
I know.
They'll Google it. If they miss an acronym, Google PCS.
Yeah, what does PCS mean in the Army? So I PCS'd up to Fort Wainwright, Alaska. I did cold weather training up there, by the way. Okay. And then did another deployment, 2008 to 2009. And that's actually during that time is when I met my wife. Or not during that deployment, sorry. During my time at Fort Wainwright. I was up there in 2007. And then got back from Iraq and got out of the Army at that time. So it was... Did
you ever think about, like, this speaks to me, I want to make this a career, or you knew that it was right time to get out?
It's... Okay, so... man, that's... So that gets into a lot of, like, that gets into me, right? Yeah. That gets into the aspects of me, right? Because, so when I was... Man, that's a long story. Let me see if I can abbreviate this. I was in the recon platoon, and we deployed to... When we deployed to Iraq my second time, and I kept asking my squad leader at the time, I was like, hey, man, my wife is pregnant. This is the due date. She's having a C-section. I need to make sure I'm there because when she has a C-section, like, she's going to be out of it. Like,
right.
I mean, it's pretty rough. I mean, natural birth is rough. All birth is rough. Women really go through a lot to bring children into this world, right?
In ways that we will never understand.
Correct. And so I kept telling him, I said, hey, I need this time off. I need this time off. And he kept saying, oh yeah, you're good. Well, then we were 2 weeks prior, and my son has just been born. And then he's like, no, they're not going to give you that time off. So he waited till, literally the last second to tell me that.
That's an all too familiar Army story, right? We miss out. Part of the sacrifice of being a soldier is not just that you're in a harsh place. It's not just that people are trying to kill you and that there are stressors that are associated with that. It's certainly not the quality of the food that we enjoy while we're in, right? But it's the fact that our families sacrifice a lot too. Yeah. And we miss out on important events. And in some cases, those form some of our decision making when we know it's time to move on. And
I was planning on making a career out of the Army. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even planning on getting married when I met my wife, but we fell in love quickly and got married, and that was that became the priority. Is really what it comes down to. So my son was 2 weeks old when I left for Iraq, and I'm having to say goodbye to my firstborn son. That was hard. Oh yeah. Like that was really hard. I wasn't in a really great place at the Army in that time either. Mm-hmm. Like I was struggling pretty hard, which is a whole other story unto itself. Mm-hmm. And then I got back on, so had mid-tour leave, came back 6 months later. He didn't even know who I was. He didn't know I was his father. Yeah. And that cut deep. I mean, you can take it, he's just a baby. He doesn't know. It doesn't matter.
There's still a connection there.
It doesn't matter. I felt
the same thing too. I came back after my first Iraq tour, and I felt like, my kids, they were connected with me, as best as you could through letters and things like that. But you're almost kind of picking up from a place that you don't want to be.
Yep. Exactly.
I don't know how to describe it anything other than it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It's exactly how to describe it. And so I came back from Iraq, and I was done. I was like, if I was going to stay single, I probably would have stayed in, and sure. I'd have done 20 or however long.
In the process of life events, falling in love changes your view, and then now you're going to go in a different path.
It does. Well, so like our first year of marriage, when we got married in 2007, and I spent probably 9 months of our first year of marriage in training. Like I was in the Philippines, I was at Fort Irwin, I was out in the field. Mm-hmm. And so our first year of marriage was me training. And then our second year of marriage was me in Iraq. And I come back mid-tour leave, son doesn't recognize me, and I'm like, I can't do this.
Right.
Like, I can't do this.
And I think it's important. I always tell people that part of understanding a military veteran is understanding that when there's a family involved, everybody was in the military. It wasn't just the soldier. Everybody was a part of that.
Yep. Exactly. And I decided to get out because I wanted to, I didn't. And some guys, they make 20 work, and some guys like you, right? You stayed in for
27 years. 27 years, 5 months, and 13 days. But who's counting, right?
Who was it? Yeah, not counting the days, right?
who doesn't know what their DD 214 says? Yeah.
Right. And so some guys can make it work, and I probably could have made it work. My wife and I are very much in love, and we have a strong relationship. But I'll tell you what the deciding factor was. It wasn't just my family is that I fell out of love with what I was doing. Uh-huh. I loved being a soldier, but I fell out of love with just all the stuff that went with it. And I probably had some PTSD, uh-huh. right? I mean, it wasn't like when I went to Iraq, it was calm, right?
Right. Like we're doing real stuff, and every day, when you're thinking that you're going to rest, you still have indirect fire that might be coming in on you. And you have the stress of just dealing with being in the environment. It's harsh climate. And then when you're actually fighting, right? I mean, that adrenaline, the being hyper vigilant, hyper focused, that takes a toll. And I'll share my story. As a battalion commander, I was a task force commander on my second tour. There's one of me in a unit of 850 people, and it's fighting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 15 months straight. I never once in 15 months slept a contiguous time more than 4 hours. It never happened one time. And so those are the kind of things that physiologically can affect you, right? And I think everybody who has experienced that in their own ways, if you're a part of the real fighting, you have experiences that no one else will truly be able to understand. Yeah,
and it's interesting. So kind of every soldier can go through the same experience, but or the same let's say combat or whatever. Every soldier can go through the same combat experience, but for them, that experience is different.
Absolutely.
Each individual experiences that event. That's what I was looking for. Each soldier experiences that event differently. So two guys can have the same experience, but view it from different viewpoints and have different outcomes in their lives and the way it affects them.
Each of us has resilience that is different. Some folks can bend more before they break. Others, it's a different threshold. And it's really just about the person, how you were raised, the experiences that you may have had. And I think it's important for folks who deal with veterans to understand that sometimes those veterans experience things that push them just a little bit outside of their band of resilience. You can be bent a little bit, and then some of us, we bend back into shape, and here we are, doing great things and serving our country. There's others who get outside of that, and it's a fracture. It's not a bend.
Yeah.
And when that fracture occurs, that's when you've got to get those people help. And that's the best mental health care for veterans, in my opinion, that I experienced was other veterans.
Yep.
Everybody took care of each other. And then the problem always came is when you redeployed, you got back home, you break up the team, you're going different ways. Now you're back in a totally different stress environment, the family, and you have different things going on, and people aren't talking with each other the same way that they were talking during the deployment.
I believe too that it's super easy to isolate yourself. I think one of the things that people do is whenever they get either really stressed or they get depressed, or you're feeling that those strong emotions that come from a traumatic event. It doesn't even have to be war. It could be any traumatic event, right? I mean, there's plenty of trauma throughout all of life. Life will teach you to be humble, for one thing, right? And we tend to kind of like isolate ourselves and say, I'm the only one experiencing this. And it's like, not so much. Like, and it's not to say that to downplay the trauma of it, but it's to say you need to reach out.
Right.
Like, and that's one of the things I would really like to see change in the Army myself, or the military in general. And I don't know how it is. I mean, I've been out for, 16 years now, right? I don't know how things are now, but when I was in, it was very, and not that machismo is bad. I mean, you've got to have a masculine attitude to go and kill other people, right? That's the idea. Like, you're going to do something that is violent and takes aggression to do, and those are particularly masculine traits. But that attitude of looking at mental health as a weakness. And it's like, it's not normal to kill other human beings. It's not normal to see other human beings die on a regular basis. It's not normal to nearly die all the time. It's not normal to see your friends die.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't treat it that way. It shouldn't be treated that way. It should be treated as, okay, you've been through a traumatic experience. We need to address it now.
And one of the things I think is moving in a positive direction, they're using the term moral wounding, which at first I admit I was a little dismissive of that idea, but now I reflect on it, and maybe there's a little bit of that. We've all been told, maybe in our upbringing, maybe our faith tells us that we don't harm other people, but then we're told, you are to protect your country and to do what your country needs you to do. It's now correct. It's now the right thing to do. There's rules of engagement, but there's rules for how you do it. But inherently, it's an application of violence.
Yep.
And we come back to a place where we try to make sense of the things that happen, and you can't make sense of violence when you're not an inherently violent person.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that's where speaking with other veterans, I recently went to my 20-year reunion for our first deployment to Iraq. I guess recently. It was a year ago now. It just, boom, time flies, right? But it was last year, and I went there, and it's funny, I was really apprehensive about it. Even though I have a good relationship with most of the guys I served with during my first deployment. But I was really apprehensive about it, and I almost didn't go. And man, what a mistake that would have been. I went, and it was so therapeutic.
Yeah.
To talk with these guys, see them, how they had developed in their lives, see how they had grown, how we had all grown, how we had we have families, we have most of them are divorced, but that's a whole other story. But it just how they are okay. I'm okay. We're all okay.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And it was really therapeutic experience.
And who would have thought it too, right? Because when I got back and we did a reunion, I was apprehensive too, because I was like, I don't know, we're going to talk about things and we're going to pick back, are we going to reconnect, right? Are we going to be back where we were? And I felt like I was just back. It was like we were back in Iraq talking about things again. All the things we hated were, strangely, the things we hated the most and that were the roughest at the time were the first things that we all wanted to talk about. Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that? In my first Iraq tour in 2003, even officers, we had to burn human waste.
Yes.
And anybody who has ever had to stand over a pile of burning manure and stirring it with jet fuel or mogas or gasoline on top of it cannot truly imagine how awful that experience really is. But we all did it just to show our resolve that we're all in it together. And it's funny, the first thing we all wanted to talk about was experiences like that.
Yes.
And I thought, well, that's strangely macabre, isn't it?
It really is. I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's probably some deep psychological thing there or whatever, but it just seems to be that difficulty pushes us to, it is going to do one of two things with people. It's either going to push them apart or it's going to push them together.
So is it in marriage too, right?
Yeah.
The things that can separate us or the things that can draw us more tightly together.
Yeah. And it really is just, I think it's really comes down to something, and now this is just my hypothesis. You know, I'm not like a doctor or anything, but I think it's just love. Do you really love that person? Do you really love them? I love my brothers, right? That I served with them. I love my brothers. I love my wife. I love my children. And so I'm willing to do the work and fight for what I love, right? And I think that's what it is. I don't know. It sounds like a good hypothesis to me, though.
Well, I believe, first thing I believe is that all of us who are in the military, whether we wanted to be or not, are practitioners of human behavior. We don't get a degree. We don't get, a psychology degree. Every one of us is a practitioner of human behavior because we've seen all of the human behaviors.
Everything. That's the truth.
And sometimes several times by a person of all within one 24-hour period. We'll cover all 5 stages of grief in one day, and we'll repeat it, in the evening. And by way of caring and loving for people, our soldiers, our comrades, we experience that with them, and we learn how to. One of the most powerful things I got out of the military was empathy, a true, genuine care. I worked, and you've probably seen NCOs and officers that went through the motions but didn't really care maybe as much about their people. And then there were other people that became the passion, the true love for their fellow soldiers. People like you, people not like you, people who think differently than you do. They're all your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and I think that's the amazing thing about the military is that, and I wish that we could take out into the general society in that aspect, at least, not everything about the military, but that aspect of it is where, every guy I worked with, every one of these guys I worked with, right, or that we were all soldiers. I mean, there was black guys, there was Mexicans, there was a Filipino, there was
everybody,
there was every race you could imagine, right, and all from different backgrounds, all voted weird.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. We were there to do a job. We got along great. We would joke and rib each other just like brothers do. But
if anybody from outside your unit did that, we're thrown down, right?
Yeah, right. Right. Like it's a brotherhood, right? Yeah. It is family. And I wish that somehow we could take that into broader society where we each say to each other, hey, look, I know your skin color is not the same as mine. And I know there's probably quite a few things that maybe we don't agree on, but I bet we agree on quite a few things too. And let's have a discussion about that. Let's be more civil to each other. Let's talk to each other. Yeah, we can rib each other, but let's be family. We are an American family. Let's act like it. And we do. I mean, we fight with each other all the time. That's what families do. But be a better family, I guess is what I'm saying. Being a family that loves each other.
Family that loves each other. We can disagree without being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Imagine if in politics in Wyoming, we could disagree without being disrespectful. Think of the power that would actually give voters to see the real people that we are when we strip away rhetoric and slogans and we just talk about things that matter and say, I don't see things the same way you do on this. Here's how I see that issue. And then we could have voters make informed decisions about who we are. So, by way of talking about the Army and behaviors and the things of our shared experiences, we've kind of led in to politics a little bit. And so we're going to fast forward in time. And so here you are in Wyoming now. What brought you to Wyoming, and how did you get involved in politics?
So, how did we end up in Wyoming? That's a great question. So I got out of the Army 2010. So I'm going to try to make this as brief as I can because there's a lot of moving parts in this, and I don't want to bore you with the details. But I got out of the Army. We lived with my in-laws for just a few months after I got out of the Army. We kind of get our feet underneath us, and it was during that time we moved to northern Utah. We moved to Logan. Mm-hmm. And we lived there for a year. We bought our first house. And then I started working in the oil fields, which is kind of what led me here.
Sure.
But I was working for Schlumberger. I worked for them for 3 years. But during that time, I bought a truck, a semi-truck, and my brother started hauling crude oil as a business. So I was doing two businesses at once. So one business was my brother was running crude oil in North Dakota. This was about 2015-ish. And I was actually flipping homes. So I was, it's kind of crazy to think about now in retrospect, because I'm like, it seems so normal, but now I'm like, man, that was a lot. It was a busy time in my life.
Sure.
And so he's driving. So eventually we break not contact. Well, that is the word. That is the proper wordage. But we had a business partner, and we broke up that business partnership. And my brother and I started driving in Wyoming, and I started doing that full time. So I was doing a week on, a week off. Right? He would do a week, and then he would go, and I'd come and drive the truck for a week. So we were just basically slip seating, but not like 24/7. So then I signed on with a new company. There was some technical stuff there that's boring, that doesn't need to be talked about. But anyway, I signed on with a new company, and it was at that time I had been, because I had been going back and forth working for Schlumberger in between Wyoming and Utah, and I was doing the same thing when I was driving. And then when I signed this new contract, my wife and I were just like, why don't we just move to Wyoming? We can all finally be together, like permanently. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So we moved to Wyoming. I mean, it was advantageous also. I mean, here's, this isn't for political speech or a political, whatever here. This is literally, we did it for taxes. Like Wyoming has way better tax system than Utah does. Utah has a really pretty egregious personal income tax. So we moved to Wyoming in 2016 just to be together as a family. Ended up here, and I wasn't interested in. I mean, I've always been interested in politics, but I was never interested in being in politics, because I always said, and it's not entirely inaccurate, I said it's really corrupt and it's pointless. And so I was just like, whatever, I'm a man of faith. I believe in God, and so I kept getting this just really strong impression, you need to be involved. It was probably God telling me, put your money where your mouth is, complain, you whiner, right?
Yeah.
He kind of tends to do that sometimes.
It does indeed.
And so he's like, but I'll say that he was being kinder than that. And then it was, I think it was 2019. I think we'd been here about 3 years. And I just kept getting this impression, and I was like, okay, well, I don't even know how to get involved. I was just kind of one of those things. It wasn't like a shake your fist at God moment, but it was more like, if you want me to get involved, you're going to have to do the work here, because I don't even know where to begin at. Right. And it was like a week and a half or 2 weeks later, my friend calls me, and he, real good friend, Steve Clark, calls me, and he was like, hey, dude, do you want to be on council? We need you on council. And I was like, was that you? Okay.
Is this the burning bush here?
Yeah, is this the burning bush or something? So I got on council, and that was the beginning for me. And it's funny because I want to be involved purely out of, I don't know what to call it. Like I want to make a difference. Like I really literally, when my kids, when I'm old and I'm on my deathbed or whatever it may be, I want to be able to look at my kids and say, I did my best. I really tried to be part of the solution. I complained a lot, but I really did try to come to the board with solutions. I wasn't just I wanted to show them that I really tried to make a difference in the world, even if it's just a small amount, even if I just do my little bit. That I tried to do my part.
Right.
And so that was how I got started. And then the mayor before me, he was at 8 years, and he wasn't going to run again. And everybody just looked at me, and they were like, well, you're the best candidate, and you need to do it. And I ran unopposed, and I got it. And so, that was how I ended up as mayor. So never planned any of this. just kind of went that way.
Well, we all, God speaks to us in a number of different ways. That was your story for getting involved, is essentially my story for getting involved. I was having coffee with a friend, and I was complaining about the quality of the candidates that were in the U.S. House of Representatives race. And I'm never the person to complain. I'm the guy who says, we need to do it like this. We need to, get involved. And so my friend called me out and said, so you're upset that the quality of the candidates for House of Representatives isn't great. Why isn't that you? You have all this background. Why isn't that you? It was like he punched me in the nose.
That's getting called out, right?
So God spoke to you. I think he punched me in the nose and said you need to get involved. But however it is, here we are, wanting to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the driving force, I know, for me. And you said, at the end, you want to feel proud about, I moved the needle somehow. I made it a little bit better. So now you're running as a Republican, right?
Yes, correct.
So what kind of Republican, how would you describe yourself? Are you a Freedom Caucus Republican? Are you a traditional conservative? What's the moniker that you would put on yourself for the kind of Republican you are?
I would probably say a traditional conservative. I'm not a big labels kind of guy. I'm really not. Like I know that a lot of people say that, oh, he's a Democrat or something like that, because you don't want to get a label on you, right? But I really hate labels because I find people are so dynamic. Like, you look at a person, and we as human beings, we just try to take people and put them in these little boxes,
right,
and fit them into what we want them to be, instead of just letting them be who they are. But all that being aside, I'm pretty a traditional conservative. I am. I'm not Freedom Caucus. I align with a lot of their values, but I don't like how I don't like how they run things. I'm not a dogmatic kind of guy. If I don't agree with something, I don't care what caucus you're from. I don't care, Democrat or Republican. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea.
Right. So if we have doctrine and we stick with doctrine, and that's the only way things can be, and we can't apply it to every situation, and everybody's got to be exactly a cookie cutter of somebody else. Isn't it odd when you think about it that in our country, it's binary? It's largely binary. You're either a Democrat or a Republican. Almost every other country that I've ever visited or lived in, there's a big, wide range of political parties, and any one political party has to make coalitions to be able to form a ruling party. And within that, I've had conversations. When I was in Germany, I had a conversation about politics, and not like that's a thing you want to do in a foreign country, but I did. And I went there and I got to know. He said, one of the things we find fascinating about you Americans is that you make this big difference between being a Democrat and a Republican. From our perspective, the entire political bandwidth of the United States of America is like this. He said, our country, we've got extreme socialists and communists, and we have fascists, and we have green parties, we have parties, and you have two parties that are actually would appear to be really close to each other. So putting a label on people so we can say, well, we're just going to box you up and put you over here. We don't have to think about you anymore because we've got a label on you. But someone's going to label you eventually, so you can beat them to the punch, right?
Right,
beat
exactly.
them to the punch and then label yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's better to label yourself than have people label you, right? And that's, I don't want people to come back and be like, oh, well, he's not a conservative or something. I'm pretty conservative. I'm big time pro Second Amendment, big time pro life, big time. Very traditional values. I believe in traditional family. I believe in, all those things. Like I really do, because that's what made this country great, right? That's what made us great, is being free, but choosing freedom. It's not forced freedom. It's choosing that freedom. It's choosing that the family is the strength of our country.
And having to earn that freedom too, right? Every time there's a challenge to our democracy, there's a challenge to our freedom. And if we do nothing, hypothetically, we won't stay the country that values its freedoms the And I think that, so what you described to me sounds like a traditional conservative. Within that, we can be a lot of different things. We can be people who can see a specific issue differently than other people who might see themselves as a traditional conservative.
Yeah.
And we got to allow space for that.
Yeah.
We got to allow space for people to do not only what they think is right, but I think also what the people they represent want them to do.
Yeah.
And that's an important concept.
Well, I love to bring this point up with people, is that when you swear an oath, you do not swear an oath to the people. You swear an oath to the Constitution.
Exactly.
And this is one of my pet peeves. I forgot I have this on my chest. When we swear in, during our taking our oath, I firmly believe it should say at the end, "So help me God," but it doesn't. Because then you're swearing before everyone that is there. You're swearing fealty to the law, and it's before God.
Indeed. Well, I think that making your testament in front of the people and in front of God sends a pretty strong message about who you are and the accountability that comes. We all become accountable at some point, right?
Yeah.
And so we better start living that every day.
You can't outrun justice forever, man.
Yeah, it's coming for you. Yeah. So, from being a mayor to wanting to be a member of the Wyoming legislature, what brought you into the being of a candidate for House of Representatives?
Man, that's a good question. So it really started for me when the whole Radiant thing started, and that was the beginning. That wasn't what pushed me over the edge. So it was when my representative went, and he was basically running on a platform of anti-Radiant so that he could get reelected. Mm-hmm. And the way he treated council, the way he treated myself, the way he was using it as a platform, mm-hmm. He never came to me once and asked me as a mayor, right? So who has a pretty decent pulse on the town? Your representative who doesn't live in your town, or
the mayor of the town.
The mayor of the town, and the council who deals with the situations every single day. Never came to me once. All I did was ever get dictated to what I needed to do and told I was wrong. Well, I'm not a child, first of all. I'm a grown man. And so that was what started it. That was like, this guy needs to go. And
so from that is a sense of feeling that maybe that representative wasn't representing you the way you felt.
Yes.
That those people should be represented. And part of that is engaging with other elected officials. If you ignore a mayor and a city council, who are you taking your guidance from?
Correct.
Right. So then that brings into question, who do we serve? And I think if one thing's for sure, whether you're a representative for a state legislature, or as I'm seeking to be, a representative for the state of Wyoming in the U.S. House of Representatives, I think it's pretty important to know who you work for.
Yeah.
And who you work for is the people that are in your, and you have to collaborate. I mentioned earlier coalitions, building coalitions are important. That's how we win wars. It's also how we win in politics and making relationships with people. If you don't talk with them, how do you build a relationship? Right?
And that is exactly it. Is like we can disagree, even if he didn't agree with me on the issue. That's fine, but talk to me about it.
Right.
Talk to me about it. Let's have a discussion. And we never even. It was a straight appeal to fear, and so that's what started me down that. But now that didn't mean that I was going to run against him. I just knew that he needed to be gone. Uh-huh. I was looking at how things were happening, and I was like, he's not doing a good job. He's not representing everyone, and he's not most of all, he's not obeying what the law says, right? And so I think when I really kind of the straw the straw moment, when the straw of the camel's back was broken, was when he came to council, and he was clearly had been drinking, and he disrupted the meeting. I had to tell him to sit down because he was out of order, and then immediately after that, I mean, he acted just, if you watch it, it's all public content. I mean, you can go on the town website and find it, but then he immediately went to the news media, and it's like whoever calls the cops first is the one who's going to be right. And he went immediately to the media and said, I told him to sit down and shut up. I never said that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happens when we see then where disagreement is not handled respectfully, then what ends up happening is it almost turns into some kind of a lower level reality TV show kind of a thing, where it's not about good governance now. It's about some other some other thing, and certainly when you're in a situation like you were as mayor, now you're thinking, that must be me. I must be the one that needs to step up.
Well, a lot of people were telling me, look, you've got the notoriety, whether good or bad, that you can step into that role. And I still didn't really want to do it. I'm already busy. It's not like I've got a ton of free time as a mayor and having a full-time job and having a family, and every other obligation I have,
Sure.
right? So I was pretty reticent to do it. I really was kind of just be like, well, if there's anyone else available, they can go, because I'm kind of busy right now. And then when he got charged with the DUI, I was like, no, I got to do something. I have to do something. And then so now it's really transitioned from, I don't want this to be about defeating a bad opponent. I want this to be about how do we progress the state forward towards prosperity? How do we move towards prosperity? That's really what I want to focus. Let's leave him in the past, and that mentality and that childish behavior, and let's move forward as adults and figure out what we can do to really focus on the issues that we're facing. I mean, okay, like this is my stump speech, I guess, but like we have the oldest population in the union, and we have the fastest aging population in the union, and we're losing all our young people. So we're having a brain drain go on. Those are fatal demographics, right? We can't sustain that. We will turn into a retirement community, and things will spiral and get worse and worse. And not that things are bad, but we just won't be able to compete with the other states. And eventually it'll get to a point where we'll never be able to. And so we've got to take some corrective action now while we still have the ability to get the state back on the course where we need to be, where we've got a younger population, where we've got a thriving and robust economy, where we've taken those steps and actions to get us back in that right direction. And
when you think about the fact, I mean, it's just sobering to me when I looked at the statistics of Wyoming-born kids. 50% will be out of the state permanently by 20 years old.
Yes.
Two-thirds of all of our Wyoming-born kids are going to leave the state by 30. And when I was working in the Wyoming Fire Service, I would work with some of our rural counties, and there's a real now impact with that. We have firefighting programs in some of the rural counties, Platte, Goshen, Weston, Niobrara, Crook counties, where the aging population has an immediate effect. It's right now, you've got the average age of a firefighter who's in their 50s, and they're all people that are farmers and ranchers that are helping out, and there's no young people coming in to do that kind of work. So every year when your average age gets 1 year older and all the young people are leaving, you reach a point where how does the county even provide the services to its, there's not a lot of money, from revenues that are generated, and you need the young people to do some of those critical roles.
Yeah.
And so I can already name several counties that I've personally worked with that are struggling just to meet some of the basic services. It's a now problem.
It is, and it's going to get worse. Is the scary part. And youth, right? Youth brings vitality and it brings energy that we need, right? As we age, it's not a slam on old people. I'm 45, so I'm past my prime now, unfortunately. But
now you're a young man. Let's settle that right now. You're a young man.
I don't feel like I did at 20. I'll tell you that.
as do we all. But you're a young man.
But youth brings vitality and energy that we need.
Right.
It's youth are the ones that try new things, start new businesses, push things forward, and as they make that growth happen, it grows the state. And so the answer to all this is I've been trying to pin it down, and I don't have all the answers. Okay, so I'm not going to pretend like I do, and I'm not a politician. I'll tell you, I don't know. I'm not educated on everything. You can ask me about what is the price of rice in Zimbabwe, and I'm going to look at you and I have no freaking clue, man. I don't know, and I don't care what Zimbabwe is doing right now. Okay, I care what's happening right around me, like most people do, right?
Right.
But the answer to our questions is we have to get the young people to stay, which means we have to have good jobs, and we have to have amenities, and we have to be open to growth, i.e., people
change
and
right?
some change, and it doesn't mean we have to give up our values, right? It doesn't mean we have to give up our values. I think that's what everyone is worried about. I think they're worried about the changing our values and us stop caring about the things that we do care about. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to.
It doesn't. And if you think about it, how do you want that change? Change is going to occur. How do you want the change?
Correct.
If we do nothing, people are fleeing California, Washington, and Oregon. Our population in Wyoming is increasing, and it's not Wyoming people.
Yeah.
The youth are leaving. The people that are coming in are older people from out of state. They're going to bring it to us. They're going to bring change whether we want it or not. Is that the change we want, or would we rather have that our own young people that grew up here, have the culture, values, and traditions of being a Wyomingite?
Exactly. Grow organically, right? Yeah. Grow from within. And that's another problem. And now this one I don't have a solution to. I just know it is a problem, is that people aren't having as many kids as the youth.
They're so busy. You got dual income. The traditional family that I grew up in was that you had one provider and you had a person who took care of the family at home. It wasn't always the woman, but it was in a traditional family. It most of the time was. And now, to make ends meet, you've got people who are, almost every family is dual income,
yep,
just to make ends meet. You have kids that aren't getting the contact time with moms and dads because everybody's so busy trying to earn a living out there.
Yep.
And I think that leads to a erosion of some of the things that were out there as a traditional family that I enjoyed growing up, and I know that many of the families would love to be able to do that. They just can't make ends meet off of a single income.
And so I don't have a perfect answer for that. I wish I did. I know what the solution is, but the problem is getting to that solution, right? And I'll always open to ideas on how to fix these problems. But I know that's the solution, is that strong families, right? Strong families create strong communities and strong states and unions.
I think it's also the answer to the abortion problem too.
Yeah.
So if we have accountability for decision making and we have people that are brought up outside of a hookup culture where there's commitments, there's relationships that are formed, and there's accountability for that. And then it's not, abortion doesn't become the plan A. That's a thing that shouldn't happen because we're having that traditional family is setting those values, and they're saying, have kids when you're ready to have kids. Don't get into a relationship.
Well, that is, man, thank you. That is such a great point, because my wife and I talk about this all the time, and it's this hookup culture is so toxic. It is so bad for our youth, and they don't realize it because, okay, so this is, the graphic part. Sex feels good, right? Sex is fun.
God made it that way.
He made it that way for a reason. Otherwise, we'd gone extinct as human beings, right? It's supposed to be that way. But man, when you do it right, it's so much better.
That's right.
And that's what we should be teaching our kids is when you do things in the right order, when you grow up and you keep yourself clean. And you know, and this is super traditional values here, right? Like this is the old ways, right? You know, but you keep yourself clean for your husband or your wife, and then you get married, and then you have kids, and you do that in that order. Man, you are setting yourself up for like so much success in your life. None of the baggage that you're going to carry with you when you have this hookup culture where you've got, you know, all these people that you've been with that you don't care about.
Yeah, and you people proud of their body count.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing that really strikes me about that is if you're proud of your body count, and then we say, you know, the problem is that you need to have abortions for when things happen. Well, none of that would be happening if you didn't have the hookup culture, apps, you know, essentially apps that are making it ideal for, you know, this quick get together, hook up, and then you're going your own separate ways.
And how hollow is that? Like, you know, how hollow is that? Like, have a serious adult conversation here for a second, or well, we've been having one the whole time, but have an adult conversation about this. How hollow is it that you go hook up with this person and then they're just gone? I mean, is it even sex at that point? It's like it's almost self-gratification at that point. Like when you love that other person, it is so fulfilling. It's so meaningful. It's so powerful. It means, and then you spend that time with them and you get to do it again and again. So it's even more fun. And like, there's no downsides to it, right? When you're married and when you're in a loving relationship. Now, obviously it takes effort and all those other things and whatever, but man, and I don't know how we get to that, because we got to change mindsets. You got to change hearts and minds on this one. That's the hard one.
Well, you know, part of that starts with our culture and how families are portrayed on the media, all the TV shows and things where that becomes sort of the norm. Well, moms and dads, if they have a traditional family, are competing visually with the images that you see in movies and TVs. And it's not like I'm saying we should shelter our people, but we should have a conversation with our kids to go see those things, but know that it's not the right way. There are better ways.
There are better ways.
Better ways. So,
hold on. One more thing before you go on. And that's the example that we set. And so I really think as parents right now, we have an opportunity as parents to maybe do some self-analysis, some self-examination, and say, what do I need to do better? How could I clean up my language, clean up what I watch, and have a bigger influence on my child's life so that they grow up and they see this is what I want? Because I've seen what Tommy down the street, his parents who are on drugs or who fight all the time are like. But my parents, they really love me, and we live in a really good home where we're not watching trash on TV and we're not consuming filth all the time, but we're actually having sit-down dinners, or we're praying together, or we're going to church together. And what a difference in our family. Our family is completely different than that one that's so broken over there, and really showing that example. Like, we need to do some serious I have a saying. And it is, when was the last, I can't remember my own saying now. It's when was the last time you picked up a Bible instead of watching Game of Thrones?
Right. And
when was the last time you picked up your scriptures and read? When was the last time you went to church? And instead of staying home and going fishing. Fishing's great, but fishing doesn't bring your children closer to God.
Well, and one of the things that my kids have remarked is, you know, when my kids went out and became exposed to the rest of the world, they were exposed to kids that all had broken families. There were moms and dads that weren't loving each other, didn't even show affection to each other, and they don't know, what does right look like? Yeah. How do you know what right looks like if you aren't exposed to a loving family when you're growing up? Now, you can have a lot of really wonderful people that rise above the broken family, but there's all too many that don't rise above a broken family. It sets them back, and they don't know how to even love another family member in the right way.
It's the old saying, hurt people, right?
Exactly. Well, I think the summary for me is character and values matter in life. They matter in politics too. And I think that one of the things that we should challenge voters to do when you're examining who you should vote for, whether you're thinking about Kevin for Congress or Peter for House District 58, consider the character and the values that person has. You might not agree with them on every issue, but if you want to know how they are really going to perform in office, look at the character and the values of that person. That's a better indicator, I think, than what anyone tells you that they stand on an issue. Go with the character and the values. You can't go wrong with that one. So let's switch kind of to a statewide perspective. We've talked a lot about, family values, and we've really hit on quite a few things that are part of the Republican Party platform. But what do you think are some of the things, we talked on one, which is the youth exodus, a real problem for the state. What are other areas that you see from your perspective? You've had the opportunity to talk with people that are in House District 58. What are you picking up on that are concerns, and what are the issues out there?
Honestly, it's the ones that we've pretty much already covered. We've got a stagnant economy for one. Right. I wanted to say anocomy, and I was like, "What? Sounds like something out of the Bible." And we've got.
That's right after 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, right. It's we've got a stagnant economy. I talked to Dan Sabrowski. He's a contractor. He's on council with me, and he's like, we've got jobs that are being bid on by double the people that actually I see two things that are going on. Actually, now that I think about it, we've got jobs that are being bid on, and they're being bid on by double to triple the amount of contractors that would bid on them, a few years ago, and it's because there's no jobs available to bid on. And so we're slowing down, and I think a lot of people don't realize it because it's oil, and oil's good right now. But I moved here in 2016, and that was right after the oil bust, and it was pretty grim. It was tough. Right. I had to go far and wide to find work, and so we have to get the economy moving again if we want to solve the issue. So the thing about it is the economy is connected to everything, right? It's not just, this is not a single issue topic. Right. Like the economy affects healthcare, because the more youth we have here, the more doctors that are going to want to come here.
Right. And your overall cost of insuring the Wyoming population. If all of us are seeing our healthcare costs increase, you can imagine why. If you were a health insurance company looking at our county or our city or our state, they're getting older, and so their premiums, people pay more.
They do, because they go to the doctor more, and they have more procedures done because they're getting older. And that's just the way it is. So if you want that, you've got to get the economy going. And so then the second part of that, tied to that directly, is that we need to, we're just going to have to change our mindset a little bit. Like we just can't, as Wyomingites, we cannot expect to prosper but not have some change that comes with it. So, whether it's a Radiant, or whether it's a data center, or whether it's BWXT, or whether it's TerraPower. And I don't agree with all of these, okay? So, everybody probably thinks, oh, he's just pro-Radiant, and he only cares about nuclear.
Yeah, bring on the data centers.
Or bring on the data centers. I absolutely 100% believe in doing things intelligently, and doing things, with safety, and with all things considered, I guess, is taking the totality into aspect, right? I totally believe in all of that. But we have to change this mentality of that we can have coal, oil, and cows, and that's all we're ever going to have. We can't do that. We've got to kind of branch out a little bit. And
using coal as an example, if we are unable to expand markets for Wyoming coal, it is in decline. It at one time was about 2/3 of all of the electricity in our country was made with coal, and now we're in the upper 20, lower 30 range, depending on your statistic. So there's a smaller market. So our state that enjoys not having a state income tax is largely due to coal. A lot of that coming from the Powder River Basin here. And if oil and gas, I'll give you a quick story. In 1982, I'm in high school, dating myself here. I graduated in 84, and 82 to 84 saw one of the biggest busts in oil that has ever occurred. We were a large town. The 1980 census, I think, had us over 60,000 people. Wyoming has never recovered. Casper has never recovered from the bust of 1982.
Wow.
We're still trying to get our way back. My graduating class was like a third dropped out, were gone. And it just happened, they're just gone. They leave because when the industry bust, you just had people who were making good livings to where they lost everything. And that, sent a real shiver down my spine, which is we love our oil and gas in Wyoming. We love our coal. And those are important parts of our economy, as is, stock growing. But we have to be thoughtful about the fact that, is that what Wyoming 20 years, 30 years, 50 years is going to be prosperous on? If that's all we have, then we may not be in the same place that we are now. We will not have the revenue.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, is that you can't rely on those three industries alone. Like, you look at Texas. Texas is huge on oil, but Texas has tons of other industries.
A lot of tech industry.
Tech industries. They have seaports there. So we've got to think outside of the box here, because we're a landlocked state. And so we've got to come up with other ideas outside of those three. We can't just rely on that. And not that they're bad. Those are great. They've sustained us, but we need to grow, because, I mean, to put it bluntly, we're in a competition with the other states.
We are, and we need to outcompete them, because they're competing for our kids and they're winning.
Yeah.
So we got to outcompete them. So I was at a tourism. It was put on by Visit Casper this week, and they were talking about the tourism industry. Tourism is number 2 industry now in the state of Wyoming, and there's a lot of mixed feelings about how much should we become, a tourist destination. We love people. They come here, they spend their money, as long as they turn around and leave when when they're done spending their money. What are your thoughts on what should we do? Should we do more to try to bring in tourists, or do we think it's about right?
I that's a really good question. Not one I was totally not prepared for. I don't know.
One of the challenges, of course, is you've got
to have something to tour, right?
Yeah.
So
you get the money that comes from people when they spend, but they aren't here, contributing outside of hotel industry.
Right.
It's hospitality industry that really is going to benefit from that. And so the challenge there is you can, if you're in a city or a county or the state, you have to think about how much money do we want to put towards bringing in that tourism industry. And if we really want to go after it, we have amazing things, across. We have hidden gems all across our state that people don't even know about, but there's goodness to that too. One of my favorite places to go is Saratoga. I love Saratoga, but that's where my dad taught me to fly fish. We go there every summer, and by and large, people coming here don't really know all about Saratoga. There's a little hot springs there. There's a little piece.
Great snowmobiling too.
Oh yeah, oh gosh, so much there that it's kind of like, let's there's a couple places we as far as I'm concerned, Teton County. I was in Teton County earlier, and that is 100% of. I mean, not 100%. It's a big part of their industry there is destination tourism. But one thing like a change in the price of gasoline, and now your tourism numbers could be significantly off. And there's data that shows that when the gas prices are high, people go out on vacation, but they stay local. They're not taking the cross-country trip to Yellowstone or to Black Hills, South Dakota. They are visiting their local parks. They're doing those kinds of things.
I think tourism, it really is about balance. you can see the, thinking about it, there's tourist heavy places. Like you go to, one of the places we go as a family is West Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it, like Yellowstone during the summertime is just packed.
Oh, it's crazy busy, isn't it?
Right?
Oh,
but you hit wintertime, or you hit, when it starts to close down and go into the winter season, and it shuts down. And they really rely on that summer season for them to get through the tough times. And so is tourism, I look at it like this way. Is it an arrow in the quiver? Yes. Should it be all the arrows? No. It's part of a broader plan to get more here get more going in our economy than what we have.
So diversification, I think, in any economy is a good thing.
Well, it's like a portfolio, right?
It's a portfolio, and it's part of our investment strategy. And so being number 2 with tourism is probably a good thing for us. I hear people's like, there's just too many tourists that are coming in. Yeah, but they're spending their money, and they're contributing a lot to the economy, and it's now a big part of the economy.
And the funny part about it is that Casper probably could lean pretty heavily into the whole cowboy genre thing.
Yeah.
They could probably lean pretty heavily into that if they wanted to.
Yeah, Casper is interesting because we have, and I remember talking to the former Casper mayor, and the idea was we want to be a destination tourist place. We don't want to be thought of as the oil and gas city. The oil city days are over. We are a destination tourist attraction. Well, you maybe can pull that off. We've got blue ribbon fishing on the North Platte River. We got Casper Mountain. We got things that can contribute to that. But if anybody thinks Casper is not going to have energy, it's just part of who we are.
Yeah, that's in our blood.
It's in our blood, and it runs deep, right? You can just tell by when you come into Casper on the east side on the interstate. We have the famous statue there of the guys, the early drillers out there, and it's definitely emblematic of our roots and who we are. We're a cowboy city, but admittedly, we are the oil city. We ought to just admit. But we're also a coal city too. A lot of people from Casper do actually work in service industries to coal, or in some of them actually do travel up to the coal mines. So we're on energy. So speaking of energy, we touched on it earlier, radiant and nuclear power. Run me through, because I watched it, but I didn't know. Give me the insider scoop.
You weren't in the nitty gritty.
Yeah, well, give me the insider scoop. Now, we won't mention names or anything, but insider scoop. What was the opportunity, and how did that all play out?
Radiant. I had someone contact me, and they informed me that there was going to be a meeting I should be at, and it sounded very cloak and dagger, and I was like, what the heck is going on around this place?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to get assassinated or something? I'm like, I'm not even important enough to get assassinated. Who would shoot me? It was in January of last year, and I show up to this meeting, and it's Radiant, and they're putting on it was a Radiant that contacted me. It was another person, and Radiant was there, and they gave a little brief presentation of what they were going to be doing. And I went up to, I believe it was Tori, right? She's the COO. Mm-hmm. And I went up and talked to her, it was Matt Wilson. He's their operations director, I think. And I went up and talked to him, and I said, hey, you guys, they had a map. That's what it was. They had a map, and there was like where they were going, and then there was Bar Nunn. I was like, well, that's just north of Bar Nunn. That's interesting. And I was like, hey, where are you guys planning on going? Talk to him a little bit. And it's like, well, if you guys do plan on going to north of Bar Nunn, I'm the mayor out there. We should talk, and we can, maybe set some things up so you can do town halls and, get the people informed. Anyway, let me know, type thing. And so we exchanged numbers, and I went on my way. And I think it was about 2 months later. And so I went to council, right? And like, there's a radio host, I don't remember her name, but she was like, oh, they were trying to hide things, and they were secretly doing all these deals, a hidden agenda. There was no hidden agenda, man. Like, I didn't know what was going on, or not that it goes on. I was just doing my thing, right?
Right,
I wasn't, there was no...
Well, you're the mayor, and there's a thing, so you would naturally...
I would naturally go as the administrator and representative of the town, right? I'm basically the ambassador of the town, right? So I went to the thing, I came back, and I talked about it in council. I was like, hey, so there's this company, they're talking about doing this thing. We'll see where it goes.
Right.
So they called me, I think it was like a month later, 2 months later. And a couple of members of council, we went down there and we met with them because one of the things I had with them is, well, if you get serious about buying that property, then we need to, start talking about it because, it wasn't in Bar Nunn, it's just north of Bar Nunn, right? But we need to talk about it because, it's right next to my town. People are going to be concerned.
And economic opportunity, potentially. It likely be people in Bar Nunn that would end up working with or at the facility. I was
pretty skeptical at the time because I was like, man, it's a nuclear, it's going to be close to the town, all these things. And so I was going in with a heavy dose of skepticism. And we met with them and they were talking about actually they were going to go through with the property purchase. And so they were really serious about it at this point. And I was like, okay, well, if we're getting serious about this, it's time to start, setting up town halls, talking to people, things of that nature. So they started doing town halls, and the first one actually went really well. Like people showed up and they had questions, and a lot of people, they were respectful. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And I was at that one, and I think I was at the second one, and they did like 5 or 6 of them. And I missed the third one because I had to work. I can't be at everywhere all the time, right? And it got pretty rowdy apparently without me being there. And I felt kind of disappointed because it's like Dad stepped out of the room, so we all, had a pillow fight, and punched holes in the wall or something. So it is what it is. And so during that time also concurrently, Representative Allemand started doing town halls down at the hangar, and they were basically just anti-nuclear, anti-radiant
rallies. Rallies.
Yeah, just to gin up basically fear. I did a lot of study into it. I listened to what they had to say about how their reactors were designed. I studied, and this is before I went to INL, I studied about how the nuclear fuel is storage. I studied about the handling procedures. I studied about the safety records. I really went in depth on it. I wanted to know because I was worried about my town. And I was worried about, I live in the town, right?
Right.
So, and I came out of it on the other end and I was like, man, this is pretty safe stuff. And this is the future. This is really the future. You can't just not at least give these people a listen, an ear.
Right.
And so then I went to INL, and that really sealed it.
What's INL?
Oh, I'm sorry. Another military acronym, right? Idaho National Laboratories. So it's where it's basically where they do all so if you're going to bring a reactor online, they go out to INL and they test it.
Okay.
And or a new reactor, I should say. So if you're going to bring a new technology, they test it at INL, and then it gets to, INL basically says, hey, this thing works. They run it through all its, run it through all its tests, and then it's not DOE. Whichever agency handles it, they stamp off on the seal of approval of the reactor. And so that was all going on. Things really got heated. People were super angry about all of this. They coming into council and, venting. Some people were in favor of it. Some people were obviously against it. Some people didn't care. And that was, during that time was when I had the interaction with Bill Allemand. And then eventually what happened is what it came down to is that Radiant needed the law to be changed because we can store, and a lot of people don't realize this, we can store nuclear fuel in Wyoming already. It's in the law, right? But what they needed is that they just needed the law changed a little bit so that they could send it out, it could be used, and then it could be brought back. Mm-hmm. And that was all that needed to be changed. It was a very simple rule change. And then they had to go through the Minerals Committee. So, the committees send laws up to the legislature, and it got tabled in the committee. And then that's when Radiant basically was like, well, we can't sit around forever and wait. We've got to go somewhere else, and they
Right.
went to Tennessee. So,
Well, that's one of the things, when opportunity comes knocking, you have to be willing to make some adaptations for it to come in. But you also have to be eyes wide open on what all of the pros and cons are. I feel like the same conversation about a nuclear facility coming in could be a data center thing.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons on it. You lay all those things out there, let the company talk about, this is what we're going to do for you, this is what the impacts are, and then our elected officials, us, can ask questions and find out what's in the best interest. Ultimately, I think it comes down to there's very few new things that are going to come in that are all sunshine, birds chirping, and there's always going to be something. Oil and gas has impacts.
Yeah.
It has impacts on our water. It has impacts on our environment. Coal does, wind, solar, all these things. You can't get something for nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And nothing in this life is free. So there's always some sort of an impact, but nuclear is probably the closest you can come to not having an impact. Like,
it's clean. I lived next to a nuclear plant in Germany. They were everywhere, and that's how they made their electricity. Mm-hmm. And they had some of the lowest electricity prices of any place in the world because it was all driven off of nuclear power. It's very, very efficient. It's very and if properly engineered. I think a lot of people, especially in my generation, you say nuclear, it's 3 Mile Island, it's Chernobyl, it's the technology of the 50s and 60s that had mishaps in the 70s and 80s, and now I think about the fact that the technology for making a nuclear reactor. Think of how much has changed computer-wise since the 50s and 60s. My phone has more computational power than the lunar lander of the Apollo mission. I mean, not like close. It's like orders of magnitude more powerful.
Yep.
So are all of the engineering and the computer control systems too. So, it's not the same manual control system where there's a guy in a control room, trying to balance, the radioactive loads. It's all very precise, and it's very modern. I mean, our nuclear reactors that are on our Navy ships are so much a different technology than nuclear reactors were when the nuclear Navy first came to be. There were nuclear accidents on Russian subs and American subs, and now that never happens. It just never happens anymore because we've learned.
There's a lot of misconceptions too. Like it's pretty interesting. This idea that Radiant came up with, there's no dog in the hunt anymore on it, but the idea that they came up with for how their radioactive or their nuclear reactors work is truly amazing, like a feat of engineering, because they use helium, which cannot be irradiated, as a moderator. And what moderators do in a nuclear reactor is they basically moderate the nuclear fission. Mm-hmm. And so you have your fissionable material, and as the neutrons interact with each other, the moderators don't work the way people think they do. They're actually the reverse. They don't slow down the nuclear reaction. They actually speed it up. Mm-hmm. And they keep it going. So when you remove the moderator, the whole thing shuts down. Mm-hmm. And so if they ever had any issues, the helium is designed to vent off, and the nuclear reaction automatically shuts down. And that's pretty amazing. Like, it's truly amazing engineering and physics involved in it.
Yeah, the old style reactors with cadmium control rods is the only thing that you basically had something that was keeping it from going over, and now you have technology that's basically reverse of that. You're basically keeping it going. It wants to die, not explode.
Yep. And so it's pretty amazing technology. Truly, like almost science fiction type stuff. So.
Well, one thing I think we can probably assume is that there's going to be new opportunities for nuclear power. It may not be it's Radiant north of Bar Nunn. It could be still in House District 58, because nuclear energy, well, we make the uranium here in Wyoming. We've got ongoing nuclear mines or uranium mines that are active across, and we're not buying from Russia anymore.
Right.
So there should be a good market for that, and it could be beneficial for Wyoming in a number of ways. But part of the things change comes is informing and educating, and you have folks that if fear is the first thing that gets to them, it's hard to overcome. It's hard to overcome fear.
Yeah, fear is, so you have two primary emotions, love and fear, and they can't coexist, right? Or faith and fear, I guess, would be the opposites, but
right.
Love and fear are really two, like, or courage and fear, however you want to look at it, like they're the two opposites, and fear is an extremely powerful emotion.
We see it in the elections. I see candidates, particularly in my race, who elicit a fear. Illegal aliens are storming. They're coming for Wyoming. They're going to take away your way of life. But I will save you from that. So you create a fear, and then you make yourself out to be the savior of that. Only I can prevent the murderers and the rapists from coming in and
exactly
harming you. And I've had it explained to me. I was talking with a doctor here in the podcast room just a couple days ago, because we're getting ready to do a podcast on how to fix our medical system, healthcare in the country. And he was explaining to me how fascinating that the fear, where fear goes in the brain, is closest to our memory center. And so fear, if you want somebody to remember you and you want them to remember a thing, if you can elicit fear, it will stick in the brain longer than a positive motion will. And that means that can be then used for nefarious purposes. You can use that in a campaign.
Politicians use it all the time.
See, what I like is I'm a Ronald Reagan era. That's probably before your time. But Ronald Reagan,
I was a kid, but yeah.
Ronald Reagan did the opposite. The Democrat candidate was, all the bad things are going to happen if you don't elect me. And Ronald Reagan says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a great new future for all of us. Yeah. The future is bright. We can all get behind. And he was a great communicator. And he did the opposite, and it won. It beat out all of the negative things. Manufactured fear at the time was we were running out. Remember, there was a thing called the energy crisis. Mm-hmm. We were running out of energy. Oil and gas, we're about ready to run out of it. We got to conserve every last drop. We're almost out.
Yep.
Well, we weren't even close to being out. We have, just here in Wyoming, we got enough natural gas to power the world for a long time. But it was this fear-mongering thing, and it was provoking this fear response. Reagan came along, and he's like, no, we've got solutions to all that. In fact, the fear of the Soviet Union, which was predominant fear at the time, we're going to just take that. I'm going to just take that out of the equation. We're not going to fear them anymore. And I thought, wow, what a powerful message. And it resonated with people, because not only did he do that, when he got into office, he did something that I really respect as an aspiring politician, which was, I'm going to work with people who disagree with me. Mm-hmm. I want to build a coalition. He did not like Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the House. He controlled the House of Representatives. But the two of them would get together, have lunch, and they controlled the power. The balance of power was essentially those two people. And they sat down and was like, all right, for the good of America, what's it going to take to get this done? And they both made compromises, and they got things done. And that to me is an example of how you can have a positive emotion. I felt good about seeing the two people on opposite ends of the political spectrum sitting down, having lunch together, and working problems out. That made me feel good about America.
Yeah, it's funny because Pat Sweeney, conservatives do not like Pat Sweeney. But Pat Sweeney has been genuinely kind to me.
He's a great man.
He's a good dude.
He is a great man.
He's got some political beliefs that I do not agree with, and he knows that. Like, we have disagreed.
Yeah. But he's still a great man.
But I still talk to him.
Yeah.
And he is not my enemy. Okay. So we have enemies. Like there are people that want to hurt America. There are people that want to hurt other people. There are people that are genuinely evil in this world, and they are enemies. But most people are politically, or not even politically, but ideologically or in that manner are our opponents.
Right. They can be different from us, disagree with us, but once again, it is
the same idea as we are playing a football game and my team wins, but I still shake your hand at the end.
Right.
Because that's what adults do. And so he's not my enemy. I'm not going to drive a sword into his heart to slay the beast. I'm going to disagree with him, and I will, not that I have a vote against him. He's not in the House anymore, but I'm going to disagree with him, and I'm going to state my case. And that actually brings up another point too, is that if I treat people like crap, how am I ever going to win them over to the rightness of my cause? Like, how am I ever going to convince anyone of the rightness of my cause if I treat them like garbage? Like, how am I going to do that? You can't. You will never change anyone's mind treating them that way. Instead, you make your case and you treat them with respect, and you will have an influence on them.
And if your message carries the day, other people will fall in line. They'll go, you know what, he's got the right ideas. Let's vote for Peter. And that comes from influence. Leadership is influence, and it's a powerful tool when you know how to use it.
I would actually add something to that, if you don't mind.
Please.
I would say leadership is also love. Mm-hmm. It really is. You lead people. You love people who you lead. A true leader, right?
Servant leadership is about love. It's about serving the people that you lead.
Because that's what I take a lot of examples out of the scriptures, and that's what Jesus taught, is that leadership. If you truly want to lead someone, you love them. And
imagine having God wash your feet.
Right?
Right. I mean, the humility of serving the people that you lead is a powerful example for all of us.
It is, and it will make people who even disagree with you on many topics still want to help or be part of your process. So anyway,
I think what you've done is made a case for why people should support you, because you've laid out that you're a values-based leader, and that you want to make a difference, and that you care, and that the people of your district are going to come first. That seems like a pretty compelling case.
I hope it is. The reason why I am where I am is definitely not for the paycheck. Yeah. It is because I started serving a long time ago. I served a mission for my church. I served in the Army. I've served on council. I've served as a mayor, and I've had a long, I never really, not even maybe until now, I've ever taken account for that, or not an account, but a reflection of it. But I've spent a long time serving, and I love my community. I really do. It's, I'll share this experience. When I was a missionary, we have something called a mission president, and he's the leader over all the missionaries in a certain area. We had about 200 missionaries in his mission, and he was teaching us and leading us. This is how basically they do training where they teach you how to contact people and stuff like that. But one of the things that he was teaching us is about loving people. And he said to me, or he not said to me, he said to all of us, but something that really penetrated my heart. He says, he told us a story. He says, when I was a young man and I got married to my wife, he says, this is what love is. I understand now what love is. And he said, and then my family grew, and I held my children. I had all my children around me. He says, this is what love is. And he says, and then I had grandchildren, and I had all these grandchildren. He's had a lot of kids, by the way. And I have all these grandchildren. He says, this is what love is. And he says, and then I came on this mission, and now I have 200 children. He says, this is what love is. And he says, the point of this is that love does not have a capacity. Love is limitless.
That's a powerful thing for us, right?
It is huge. And that's really what I guess motivates me in the end is love. Like I love the people I serve. There are genuinely people I know who hate me, but I still love them. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. Like there are some people that, man, there are days where I'm still human, you know, I'm still immortal. I want to punch some people in the face. I get mad because it hurts.
But you're human, right?
I'm human, right?
Emotions, right?
But when I calm down and I reflect, I say to myself, I have to love the people I serve, and I love these people. Even if they hate me, I still love them. So,
well, it takes our society to a better place because now politics turns back to serving the people.
Yeah.
And when you're focused on serving the people and not a personality or a person, then now you're doing things for all the right reasons. You have the moral high ground, if you will.
I hope so. I'm trying to stay there. It's one of my biggest concerns. It really is. I want to stay there.
So aside from managing a busy life and a busy family, you've decided to add to that by becoming a House representative for the state legislature. So I commend you for that. What we're going to do now, we're going to kind of wrap up a little bit, but I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions, but there's no wrong answer to any. There's no wrong answer to any of this.
I wouldn't say that, but okay.
A political figure that you admire.
How much time do I have to answer?
Yeah.
This is going to sound cliche, and it's really a toss-up, but I'm going to say George Washington. And the reason why is because he was a genuinely good person. And he had many flaws. He is the only general in history who lost more battles than he won, but won the war. And he came out of the Revolutionary War. He wanted to go back to his normal life, but he went on to serve because he felt it was his duty. 8 years as president. And King, I think it was King George at the time. I don't want to misquote it, but he says, if he steps down, he will be one of the greatest men that has ever lived because he could be king. And he could have. But he stepped down and...
that is the correct quote, by the way. Yes, yeah. I'm familiar with that one. Yes.
And he did step down because he just wanted to go back to being him. And I respect that so deeply that he would be willing to give up all that power.
There were people that wanted him to become president for life.
Yeah.
And to realize that I've served my country, I've served as president, I've served as the commanding general, fresh blood, new people. I've started us in the right direction. Yeah. Take us to a good place now.
Yeah, he really set a high standard, and so he's truly one of my favorites.
All right. So, favorite place in Wyoming to visit?
Oh man, let me think about that one.
Can't say bar none.
Dang. Let's see. I'm trying to think of that one. It's a toss-up. I can't choose two, so let me choose one. I'm going to go with Alcova because I go fishing there with my boy.
Good memories I have from Alcova, too. That's a good choice. I like that place. Best restaurant you've been to in Wyoming?
Oh, man, that's a good one, too. I would say Fire Rock off the top of my head.
Right. Yeah. Fire Rock is great. I admit
I like a good steak.
Yeah.
I like a good steak.
Favorite sport team?
Oh, that's super easy. Alabama football.
Alabama.
That's
Roll Tide.
Originally from Roll Tide.
All right. Favorite music artist?
Man, you're giving me some tough ones here. Let me think about that one. I would have to say Def Leppard.
Def Leppard, Pyromania.
Yes,
right. Yes,
absolutely.
I love. Yeah, boy, that's. I appreciate your choice because that's an '80s rock classic there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Def Leppard, and I love all the '80s bands, right? So that's a really hard one because there's a lot of really good '80s rock bands, right? But my daughter likes listening to Def Leppard, so I'm like, I'm kind of partial.
When I got my daughter her first iPod, I loaded it up with classic rock, my 70s and 80s classic rock. And, I basically indoctrinated her that that's what good music was.
Yeah, they don't make music like that anymore.
No, they don't. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. This was a great opportunity for us as part of my campaign for U.S. House of Representatives to talk with people that are also involved in politics in Wyoming, talk about issues that matter, talk about character and values that matter in politics, and touch on some of the key issues that we've both experienced out on the campaign trail. So it's been a real pleasure, Peter, having you on the Wyoming Matters podcast. I wish you the best of luck, and stay in touch, because we'll have you back on at some point, because there'll be many things for us to chat about in the future.
Absolutely. Same to you too. Thank you for having me on.
Indeed. All right. Take care.